Welcome to Simsbury Happenings. My name's Eric Wellman, and the budget dance continues. That's right. At the time of this taping, we are still in the middle of it. The Board of Finance has weighed in and said that some dollars still need to be taken out. So, what does this mean for our schools, our roads, our police, and of course, our taxes? And the referendum. Your chance to vote on the budget is being pushed back from May to June. I wanted to find out what's going on, so my guest today is Simsbury's newest selectman, Elaine Lang.
Hello, Eric.
Good of you to be with us.
No problem. Happy to be here.
So I want to find out how we got to this point, but first, where are we right now?
Well, we can make it a short program, and I'll tell you nobody knows.
All right, actually, and thank you for watching. Yeah.
But actually, we started the process for Selectman Lisa Hebner presented her budget on February 29th.
Okay.
And throughout the month of March, the Board of Selectmen met multiple times to kind of go over the budget. Our budget is a line item budget, so it's broken down into very small portions. So we really went over it with a fine-tooth comb.
I've watched these meetings, and they literally go through every single line.
Yeah, we go through every single thing. So it's, you know, on the town budget side, we're very careful with every single expenditure. And a lot of really worthwhile things that our various department heads asked for, unfortunately, had to be cut just to get to that final budget that we were able to agree on. And so once we were completed with that, we presented that to the Board of Finance, who have had several meetings and 2 public hearings so far on that budget. They are not ready to send it to the voters yet, which is why there will be another public hearing, the date of which it might be the 17th. Of May, but I'm not. I don't want to.
Won't quote you on that.
Don't quote me.
Right.
It should be on the town website. So people who are interested in coming and giving their views during the public hearing can, you know, get that information off the town website. So
what are the Board of Finance's concerns at this point?
Well, a lot of our concerns are anticipating monies that we are supposed to be receiving from the state. Municipal cost sharing things. There is a provision that, for example, gives municipalities a portion of the sales tax that is earned in their town.
Yeah.
There is another that reimburses towns like Simsbury, who used to have a higher mill rate on cars for the property tax, and now the state has imposed a cap on the car tax that's significantly lower than ours was. Which then, you know, is essentially an unfunded mandate on towns like Simsbury. And there had been assurances that we'd be made whole on that for the first few years. There's a chance that could go away. And of course, we've seen in the news just in the last week or so, the governor has proposed cuts to some educational funds across the state. And none of that is final. We don't know if any or all of those cuts are going to be made because it's currently before the legislature. So we're kind of watching that and anticipating that. And the other concern that the Board of Finance has is looking forward, trying to keep the budget growth and especially anticipated future large projects that we will bond, worried about our debt servicing timeframes and really fascinating finance things like that.
Right?
It is very important, but it's very, you know, it is not as simple as, you know, I always hear people talk about budgeting in the government as well. You know, I don't spend more than I have. That's just the way it is. I balance my checkbook. It's governmental budgeting is much more complex because there are a lot more wheels in play than a household budget.
So I imagine trying to do the town budget when you don't know exactly what you're going to be getting from the state is kind of like driving down the road and not being able to see out of the window in some ways.
It is, and it makes it hard for us to plan with our dual commitments in mind, those commitments of holding the line on our property taxes and on our mill rates and consistently keeping up the quality of the services that we offer in the town. And that's very difficult, especially when there are a lot of upward pressures on the costs that people don't see. There's another wrinkle, just for another one. I know when Lisa was on your show last month, she talked a bit about a state cap on municipal budget growth that is out there that basically limits the amount a local budget can grow. The budget, not the taxes. It doesn't cap the tax growth. So for a town like Simsbury that is seeing unprecedented levels of growth in our grand list, we have building permits much higher than we anticipated this year. We're about to go into a growth phase. Ultimately, this will give us upward pressure on the Board of Education budget and on the town budget for roads and police officers and all those other infrastructure things that already make it a great place to live for us, but will continue to make it a great place to live for new residents coming in.
So the budget that was proposed, I guess let's just say the budget that is out there right now, is that assuming a worst case scenario, best case scenario, something in the middle?
We had a couple scenarios laid out at the beginning of the process of if this gets cut or that gets cut, what will be the impact? And it also gets complex when you're looking at it family by family because, as I mentioned, the car tax has gone down.
Right.
So while even if there is a slight uptick in the mill rate on our on the real estate property tax, most people in Simsbury will see a decrease in their property tax on their cars. So for many households, the total property tax bill cars and real estate will actually go down, even if the mill rate on real estate goes up. So it's just another wrinkle to understanding the whole process. But after we were asked, the last request we had from the Board of Finance was to cut a bit more total, and that amount was proportionately divided between our budget and the Board of Education budget. So we're looking at that. The Board of Education budget is 70 to 75% of the total budget that is spent in town every year. Ours is in the 20s. so
if
we're
I'm
a
not
much smaller
mistaken,
portion of the budget.
What the so-called first selectman's budget is a little under $20 million.
I believe so.
And then the school's
some.
budget is over 70 million, if I'm not mistaken. So big difference in numbers. So how much has the Board of Finance asked First Selectman Lisa Hefner to take out?
I cannot remember the figure off the top of my head. Sorry. There was a figure, and it was divided between it. And our previous cut we worked on with the superintendent of schools and the business manager of the Board of Ed to kind of come to these where we could cut together, working in cooperation to reach that total.
You mentioned at the top of the show that there were things that have already been cut that were kind of painful and things you didn't want to see go. What are some of those things?
Well, we had some improvements at the library that we didn't want to cut. There were some really good public works projects that had to be put off another year. Increases across the board in different town services in, I think, I'm trying to remember specific ones, I'm sorry, but Parks and Rec, we had to, there were all proposals that had great merit that would maintain or improve services. Also, we have a lot of facilities in our town infrastructure from, town buildings, the school buildings, the Parks and Rec facilities, all are aging, and we have some needs just in upkeep and in stewardship of the resources that we have. So there were a lot of tough things to cut. A lot of most of the cuts we tried to make them as incremental as we could. So people that asked for more staff hours in certain departments, unfortunately, weren't able to get that fulfilled. But everyone, all the department heads and the town staff really, worked hard to make as many sacrifices as they could. So it was very, very hard to say no for the few things that they did ask for. So I really commend them for their willingness to step up and look hard at their budgets, and they're, without fail, very responsible to spending the money wisely. So I really am pleased and proud of how all of them have really stepped up. We have a great town staff.
Good. In this next phase of having to cut a bit more out of the budget, is that something that Lisa does alone, or do the selectmen weigh in on what to cut?
I believe she's going to look it over with our interim director of finance and come up with some suggestions, and then we'll discuss it. And generally they've done a good job of finding the best places they could. It's getting down there for difficulty, really.
Okay. Being
responsible to the to the responsibilities with our cuts, but we'll do the best we can.
Okay, so the budget, as it is right now, the one that Lisa proposed originally was 3.75% larger than it was last year, not 3.75% higher taxes, but a larger budget. Right. It's been about 0.5%, so now it's about 3.25%. Is that right?
I believe so. Yeah, we had to.
Yeah, they called Lisa's original budget the Tic Tac budget because it was basically taxing people the equivalent of 2 extra packs of Tic Tacs a month.
Yeah, correct. For the average family that has.
For the average family, right. With 2.3 kids and a picket fence.
Yes.
So what is the current budget as far as taxes goes? Is it flat? Is it holding the line?
I think the goal is to keep the mill rate flat. Now, whether or not that's going to be possible, I don't know. It is the goal to be flat with the mill rate or as close to as possible. And so much of that hangs on those state budget items that I mentioned earlier, which we still, so far the governor has only recommended, I believe the governor's budget still contains the car tax reimbursement and the sales tax revenue sharing, but the education payments were a cut we didn't anticipate that he would recommend, but there he did. But that's all still in front of the legislature, so that could go either way.
Yeah. And what is Representative John Hampton telling us at this point?
Well, he is definitely on the record as being absolutely opposed to the cut in the education reimbursement. Okay. So that is the one that's currently on the table, and he immediately sent out some press, emphasizing that he would oppose any cut to that education reimbursement. So hopefully many of his colleagues will agree with him, and we won't see that cut. But it's hard to say what we're going to have coming.
It's tough,
it is.
Right?
It is.
To what extent has the public weighed in on this budget? People of Simsbury.
We've had a number of people come when there's certain issues that are important to them come before. Okay. We did it kind of department by department in our meetings. So, for example, when we were looking at funding to maintain and repair some of the trails, the bike trails and things in town, we had a lot of input.
Folks feel strongly about that.
We had a lot of input from our various bike groups in town, from the Rails to Trails people, from the Greenway people. We have a lot of people in town that are passionate about biking and walking and using those trails. So we did have a lot of people come out in support of those. We had people come and attest to other issues that were important to them too, about wanting to see the library well funded and talking about the tremendous amount of services that our library gives. I was just amazed at the number of visits and circulated materials the library has. We have a really amazing, thriving library that,
Unfortunately, it costs money to pay for things we like.
It does, right? And one of the interesting things that they have done to kind of educate people is basically looked at people's usage of the library and figured out over the course of the year, if there wasn't a library, if they were buying the books or they were going to things, how much money the library has saved them. And there are people that it's hundreds of dollars a month that they would be spending if they were paying out of pocket for stacks of children's books and going to, play programs that you had to pay for. The library, offers a lot. So, we want to keep that at the excellent quality it is. So. Yeah.
So this is your first rodeo, shall we say, with the budget.
It is by far my first rodeo.
Yes,
it is my first budget. I'm like
What do you
New and
know
wide-eyed.
now about the budgeting process / town politics that you didn't know a few months ago?
Well, on the budgeting process, everything I know is I know now that I didn't know before.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting. You know, I was sworn in December, so I've only got 4 months under my belt. But
Yeah.
It's been really interesting. It's been really enjoyable and rewarding. I mean, I've really enjoyed it. Fortunately, Lisa's been incredibly helpful and kind of letting me know how these things are going to work before they happen, so I'm not completely lost. But it's really great, and I'm continually impressed with the amount of volunteerism and public engagement we have in town. Having spoken to people in neighboring towns that don't have our depth of volunteer boards and commissions and all the way up the ladder, it's really great to look out and see all these people serving in so many different capacities to run the town that are all giving their time just because they care about the community. And I think it really speaks to what makes Simsbury great that we can't see just driving down. I mean, we can drive through the town and see how beautiful it is, and we can look at our numbers on the schools and be really proud of that. But the people who live in Simsbury choose to have a level of engagement that I have not seen in any other community I've lived in any other part of the country.
What do you attribute that to?
I think that because we have such a commitment to electing boards and commissions and having this we have a great breadth and depth in our local government that is founded on community involvement and not outsourced or placed out. It's very responsive to people, and I think we see it in the level of engagement. So I've just been really impressed with all the people trotting through that are and not just volunteering in the government, but as I mentioned, all those different bike and trails council people and the scout troops that come through, and just one after the other. We have so many engaged volunteers in town. It's really great.
And budget aside, what else has, I don't know, surprised you, or what didn't you expect when you were sworn in?
I didn't know what to expect. I knew as someone, I grew up here and then I lived really all over the world for 20 years, and then I moved back here about 10 years ago, so I'm very consciously choosing to come back to town. And I knew,
as many people do, right?
I'm amazed at how many people I run into that I knew growing up that are like, but I haven't lived here the whole time, I came back. So a lot of us do, and it really is a special place. So I knew going in that I really cared about the community and that I really enjoyed talking to people in town and kind of moving things forward. So it's just been, it's been really interesting to kind of see how the sausage gets made.
Yep.
And it's been just a really enjoyable, and as someone who, back in my crazy college student days, I did a lot of studying of public policy and government and things like that, so it's kind of playing back to
Living the textbook, right?
I am, and it's my old academic wheelhouse. I feel like I'm 20 and energetic again, rather than...
That's great. So live in times like 4 years ago. So.
Yeah. That's just worry if I start wearing like my 90s bangs again, then we can all be concerned.
Great. So before we switch gears entirely, how can people get their say in about the budget if they have thoughts?
Absolutely check the town website and see when the final public hearing will be for coming and speaking before the Board of Finance. If there's something you're passionate about that you don't want to see cut, that you feel is important, or something that you feel like is a problem in the budget, come and give some testimony. Everyone gets 3 minutes, so plan your remarks accordingly, but definitely come to the public hearing. And if you can't make the public hearing, everyone on the Board of Finance and all of the Board of Selectmen and all of the Board of Education have email links on the town website, so everyone is invited to contact us by email with their thoughts if they have something that they would like to share.
Okay, thank you.
And come and vote in the referendum, whenever it may be.
Whenever that happens, and
Exactly.
we will keep you posted. So switching gears entirely, we talked a little bit about the wonderful bike trails around Simsbury. And coming up in a couple of days, well, at the time of this taping, it's the 22nd of April, the month of May is Bike Month.
It is. And talk about, again, the volunteerism that we have. There are so many really great events going around in Bike Month.
Yeah, so I Googled it. You just Google Simsbury Bike Month and lots of stuff
comes
comes
up. Oh my gosh, yes. All kinds of stuff comes up. We're going to be opening it at the Historical Society, where I am the president, so I get to have my fingers in right away.
Great.
We have a number of new exhibits. We've had a bunch of bike exhibits, and we're going to have some talks and things like that on April 30th in conjunction with the Innovation Fair, which we will get to in a minute. Yeah. And so that's a Saturday, and definitely come on down and see. We have presentations about Everybody Bikes, about accessibility in biking, biking with very small children, as well as ongoing exhibits about the history of bicycles, which is kind of cool. Hartford was actually a big bike manufacturer. Columbia Bikes was in Hartford. And so it's a great part of our local history, as well as part of our current history in Simsbury being such, making part of our Simsbury brand is our bike-friendly status. Yeah. Also coming up in Bike Month, the Board of Selectmen will be doing a bike ride on 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Thursday, May 5th, and everybody is invited to come out and go for a ride with us. And also, the various elementary schools will be doing walk and bike to school days. So please, if you're driving, keep your eyes open. There are a lot of adult volunteers making sure the kids are safe on the roads, riding their bikes and walking to school. But those days especially, give yourself some extra time. Don't be rushing, because there are going to be a lot of small people on the roads riding their bikes and walking to school, which is a great thing, because it does speak to keeping kids healthy and active. So. Okay,
good. Well, my wife, daughter, and I moved to Simsbury 1 year ago this week, which is kind of crazy. And I was astounded by the number of bike trails and the number of bikers on the roads. And you forget in the wintertime, but in the summertime, they all come out.
Yeah.
I know the community here is very active and very vocal. What's like the next thing or the next phase in making this a bike-friendly place?
We have a number of really exciting things. We have recently applied to the state to get better signage on our state roads, directing people to the bike trails. We have applied for several grants to improve and extend the trails, including one that a grant that we applied for jointly with the town of Bloomfield to extend the bike trail from Terriffill Center up Route 189 or 187. I can never remember which one's which. Yeah. But into Bloomfield along that road, which is very narrow right now and not safe really for a cyclist to be on the road. But that I just think is such a great thing, because I also think that's a phenomenal economic development opportunity for the village of Terriffill.
Yeah, and you think about the number of people who can commute to work in that direction.
It serves, commuters, absolutely, because you can eventually get all the way into Hartford on the trail.
Wow.
People that work, in that industrial part of Bloomfield, Day Hill Road, out the branch of the Hartford that's out there, all that. So that's a great opportunity. But also I remember being a kid here in the 80s, and Collinsville and Canton, for example, was very empty. There wasn't much going on. Mm-hmm. And the amount that bike trail has really helped that community blossom and brought new restaurants and shops and just really become a more vibrant area. And I think that, Terriffill is just so quaint and poised right there with the gorge and the kayaking, and I think really if this grant comes through, that it'll be a really great opportunity for our local business owners in Terriffill to really thrive.
And you also look at Terriffill, and there's so much potential there.
There is. It's such it's so cute. I love Terriffill. But
so in the little time we have left, we set your calendar for May because that's Bike Week. Mm-hmm. Also, the Innovation Fair is coming up.
Yes, April 30th, so very last day of April. Yeah. We will be hosting that at 3 locations in town. There will be events at the high school, at the library, and at the Historical Society. The Historical Society will include a number of things, but also the Bike Month launch. And this year the theme is innovation in design, so we're going to be talking about a lot of different design features of different things, from automobiles to the robotics teams at the high school will be showing things off, art departments. We have a number of artists. We have flower art being done again this year. The library always has really neat stuff going with their makerspace and their mini makerspace. So it's just a great day. And if anyone wants more information on all the events, we could do another half hour if I were going to list them all. But if you go to simsburyideas.com, everything that is going on is there laid out in convenient form. So
that came about because of, or sort of stemmed from, the Hartford's decision to leave its Simsbury campus.
Yeah, when that became clear, the town commissioned a marketing study that looked at kind of what our Simsbury brand was, and kind of the short form they came out with was that we were the intersection of innovation and nature. And we really do have a tremendous amount of preserved open space. We have access to outdoor recreation, which a lot of high-tech businesses have indicated is something that they look for when they're looking for a new location. So we have a lot of those things, and Simsbury has an incredible history of all of these amazing inventions and innovations that actually came out of here from way back when, the precursor to Ensign Bigford invented the first safety fuse, and then we have Gifford Pinchot, the first Forest Service manager, and really created conservation and concepts surrounding that. And we even had, I cannot remember the first name, but one of the Enos basically developed our traffic rules. Traffic lights, what side of the road to drive on. The payphone was invented in Simsbury. We have all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's been a long history, and it continues today with our local businesses always coming up with new things. So it's a great day to celebrate that.
Thank you so much for the update on the Innovation Fair, Bike Month, and the budget. I'm sure we'll be back. Thank you, Elaine.
Okay, thank you.
And that's it for today's show. We wanted to know what you think, so please do send your thoughts to our email account. That's simsburyhappenings@gmail.com. And you can also write us with any show ideas there. We'll be back again soon with another update on the town budget and other Simsbury happenings. I'm Eric Wellman. Thank you so much for watching.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.